Hi, this is Justin Kelly, 45-year-old man, 42-year-long comic books lover, and this is something that I want to go through so bad. I have so many trade paperbacks. I'm just going to keep it up here right now and just read this. Writing this in the last guttering stub of the 20th century, aware of you reading it in the fresh lit flame of the 21st. It's difficult not to be struck by the Janus-like view that we have for the landscape from here, stretching a long way behind us and further in front. Not only the much broader landscape of human and global affairs, but the landscape of that smaller world that we know in the comic book field. This is an introduction to Planetary, written by Alan Moore in 1991. While the boom and bust sweep of the last decade will almost not prove the end for the comic strip medium, it nevertheless remains difficult not to emerge with the sense that while comics may not have collapsed into rubble forever, still something has changed. Something's gone. Not a market, a format, a style, or a thing of the hard and material world of brute commerce, but something more abstract and rarefied, some phantom essence. Even back then, after the boom and bust of the 1990s, comic writers would know that there was going to be some type of sea change. This might be one of the most prophetic kind of things that somebody has ever written, because Alan Moore dropped out of writing comics. He went back into it in the 1990s, did some paper play kind of stuff, and he's always kind of done it in the 2000s. But if you could understand these words coming out in 1999, 20 years ago, it is what people are thinking right now here. Let me make sure I have my thing on here. The thing is, the thing that has changed may not be the comics themselves. Yes, they have. But instead, their audience. Yes, they have. Yeah, the comics have changed. The audience has definitely changed. The audience, the audience has stayed the same. Mainstream buyers, comics themselves have changed for the worst. Could it rather be that people have changed in the accelerated and furious rush of these last 100 years, while comics that they have read have changed more slowly and in many cases not at all? I do believe that stories, true stories, have not changed. The people who have pointed their views into stories have changed. Okay, one of the field's defining axioms in this century has been that people do not want to change, but the illusion of the same. This is probably one of the worst things that comics have ever done, is trying to keep things at a level that have gone to like a reset every 3 or 4 years just because they're corporate owned entities. In a perfect world, comics would have had a fluid continuity that instead of a reset, you would have ages of comics that you could go back and read and love and like. I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, John Byrne did a series called Batman Superman Generations, and it would have been as if Superman and Batman had lived through their actual years, continuity, through time, and he built like a rich tapestry of stuff. And these corporate comic books are just stuck in IP, not re, not coming up with new things, trying to refresh old ideas that have been there before, coming up. Okay, here, I gotta get this out of my way. Oh, my brain's not working out. I'm just looking at this. Okay, this is a fallacy based on a purely short term observation. Exactly. While it may be true that people don't want to change, it's also true that what we want, what we get, are very different things. 20th century gave us nothing else but constant and tumultuous change, and did not think to ask us if we wanted it or not. Comic books have not changed. Comic books are telling the exact same stories, the exact same war stories. We both knew change, and were ourselves changed in the torrent of events. The underlying human taste and audience demands on which we built the comic field are altered in the flux of things within the readership, if not within the books themselves. The way people think and see things has moved on. The massive scaffolding of values. Okay. Where the comic field was raised seems now deserted and seems redundant. This was written in 1999. 1999, after the death of the boom of the 1990s. How relevant does it seem right now? Comic book creators move through this wasteland between centuries are, it would seem, subject to twin conflicting impulses. On one hand, reckless New Year's resolution urge to plunge headlong into the future, as of course we must. God, I wish we did. Well, on the other hand, we have weighty knowledge of the glittering rubble that we leave behind us at our backs. 1990s boom and bust. With so much of great worth there in the long backyard of comic history, we are obliged to ask ourselves if there might not be yet some buried treasures, items fit for salvage. Wow. In the last 20 years, it seems like nothing has been fresh and new except for trying to salvage the past history. Many of us seem to have the feelings, only mistily defined. That is, some element in comics past that will prove the key with which we can unlock the medium's future. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. As if in order to move forward, we must also somehow simultaneously move back. Somehow, paradoxically, that may appear, which brings us to somewhat drawn out planetary. This was written in 1999 by Alan Moore in the first collected edition of Planetary. At the time, Alan Moore had not done traditional comic books in quite a few years, except for paper play kind of stuff, like from Wildstorm, and he had pretty much abandoned the whole entire comic genre. God damn it. What he was writing was, I believe at this time was ABC Comics, where he was coming up with his own creations, just like everybody is doing right now in Comic Skate. And he was doing, well, the first of his things was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and then he came out with the other titles, Promethea, Tom Strong, God, I can't remember all the other ones, but those are like the number two things on my mind. He was trying single-handedly to do a comic book renaissance in his own mind and purge it out of his system to get it out, get the last bit of creativity of Main Street Comics out of his blood, just like how people are doing it now, but how people are abandoning the past, taking the best of the past and reincorporating it into the future. It seems like a lot of people in Comic Skate right now are kind of fixated and stuck in the 1990s. There is a treasure trove of comics and books out there that people need to read. Not just even comics. Read books. Read daily stories. Read anything. Just read and put them into your books. The artists right now that are coming out, I believe in them. They're people who are inspired about what is coming out. And Alan Moore, back in 1999, his ideas are our ideas. I truly believe that Alan Moore is Comic Skate, and he would tell anybody in a corporate situation to go fuck themselves, like he's been saying for like the last 35 years. Oh, God. Well, I just want to throw down a little bit of history, and if I'm rambling, but I'm very inspired from Comic Skate, and I'm very happy and just proud of everybody who is involved in it right now. And read good books. Don't buy any new books from corporate companies. Buy Comic Skate books. Go back and read books with great stories, with great art, and be inspired. Okay.